One of the advantages of living this long, I was born in 1940, one of the advantages is still being alive to talk to you, but looking back at how much the world has changed in my lifetime. Again, I was born in 1940. The legal status of women, for example, has not changed a whole lot since 1940, because women had the right to vote. They had almost all of the rights that they have today. But in that time, I grew up at the end of the world of which girls can't do that. A young woman went to college to meet a nice young man from a nice family and get married and settle down and have 2.5 children. In the meantime, men went to college. We grew up in the traditional world of, again, the set roles of men as well as women. The idea was that you were supposed to go to college and meet some nice young lady, and which had absolutely nothing to do with the women you were having sex with, because nice young women simply didn't do that until at least the second date. And so these attitudes. And then, of course, thank God there was no homosexuality during that time. Yeah, I remember a neighbor describing her dog as, not only does Susie not know anything, Susie doesn't suspect anything. That pretty much described the attitude towards homosexuality. Even those of us who were gay didn't know we were gay because there wasn't a gay to be. It was something that, again, sort of like haircuts, we blame on the Beatles. All of a sudden, the 60s came along and there was this thing called marijuana, but don't do it. And there was this thing called gay sex, but don't do it. But somebody figured out if you do them together, it's pretty damn good. So, the attitudes began to change. But again, these were the sex taboos, and are not by any means simply a part of the Judeo-Christian tradition, in various ways a part of all kinds of religious traditions and so on. The idea of that you just don't talk about it. And of course that solves all the problems right there. If you just don't talk about it, then there are no problems, right? Because nobody's talking about it. The problem with marijuana prohibition is that actually there is no basis for that in the religious tradition. And so if we don't want kids to be gay or to use marijuana, what is the solution? Well, it's really very simple. You just don't talk about it. And if you don't talk about it, then the kids will never be gay or use marijuana. And if you're doubly careful, they'll never do both. The fact is that in the case of sex, sex, that you do have all of these biblical religious arguments and so on. There was nothing like that for marijuana. On the contrary. Again, just don't talk about it. Ironically, the thing that forced the issue for both was AIDS. That the closet was actually working pretty well for, in the sense that it was evolving and so-and-so's gay. Okay. Same time, though, as I say, we had evolved this system about marijuana is just don't talk about it. With AIDS, all of a sudden, we had to talk about homosexuality because it first hit in the gay community. It became visible. It was discovered, basically, San Francisco, about them. Everybody in San Francisco is a liberal Democrat, and God knows what they do. So people with AIDS were in San Francisco. A lot of them used marijuana, and it began to be observed that those who use marijuana live longer than those that don't. One of the things about the AIDS epidemic, the AIDS issue, at first, again, it was just don't mention it. A really odd thing about the Reagan administration is they went years without mentioning AIDS right in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. Nancy and Ronnie lived in Hollywood, and they had lots of gay friends and so on, but you just don't talk about it. On the other hand, just say no became Nancy Reagan's slogan. A long story behind that, we don't have time for it right now, but that just say no, that was actually, again, just don't talk about it. Just say no. If you really want to think, just saying no is not really a very good response. What do you think about medical marijuana? Just say no. What do you think about life sentences for possession of marijuana? Just say no. What do you think about 20 million arrests? Just say no. Oh, good. Okay, well, that's next topic. These two issues came together in a very clear way. That you suddenly had to confront the fact, my brother, my cousin, my friend is gay. And then he says that marijuana is keeping him alive. He's my friend, my brother, he's my cousin, and marijuana is keeping him alive. Well, just don't talk about it. There's a saying that is attributed, I think, to Jose Marti, who was the Cuban liberator. To witness a crime in silence is to commit it. Just don't talk about it. The question of, as time went by, I have personal observation. I have been so blessed that I'm quite certain the Lord has me confused with somebody else. But I never worried about being gay because I have a deep voice. I never worried about using marijuana because I don't have any hair. I don't fit anybody's stereotypes. Well, one, my family used to be the oil business. Let's not talk about it. In the future, as we go forward with what we're trying to do now with CBD and the general context, we are going to talk about it. Because what is going on with CBD really is a microcosm of a much, much broader problem. The FDA cannot get around to looking at CBD because they're very busy. But on the other hand, they haven't gotten around to examining acetaminophen, otherwise sold most commonly under the brand name of Tylenol, even though it kills people every year, either because it wipes out their kidney or their liver, depending on whether it's chronic or overdose. And in fact, they took forever to get around to persuading the manufacturers to put a tiny little warning label on their package. But no president of the United States, including Barack Obama, had the courage to say that marijuana does not belong, cannabis does not belong as a Schedule I drug. Donald Trump claims to be draining the swamp and changing things for everybody, and he is certainly not in favor of anything that Barack Obama was in favor of. I'll say one thing for Donald Trump. Barack Obama presided over the arrests of hundreds of thousands of young, poor black men. I'll bet you that Donald Trump would have stood up for rich white boys. But let's not talk about it.